All right, we're getting going here in just a few moments. Welcome into the Rise Grind Morning Show, man. It's Freak Out Friday. Weekend is here. Another week closer to the NFL Draft.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again!
All right, hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome into the Rise and Grind Morning Show. I know we're getting kicked off a little bit earlier than we normally do, so it's going to take a little bit for people to get rolling into the show this morning. So today, we're just going to review... Well, not bad sites. What's up with that? Today, we're going to review some mock draft stuff. We're going to talk about some prospects and kind of what's going on around the league as far as news, rumors, and all that good stuff. Taylor Decker on the list this morning. Marcus Davenport on the list this morning. I did finally get a response that I will share at some point this morning as far as what I'm learning about both of those players and the connection to Detroit for the 2026 season. Last week, or maybe it was this week, I did a mock draft. Yeah, it was this week. I did a mock draft late in the evening, live, and then I just noticed Daniel Jeremiah, I guess, just released his 3.0 on the 17th, which would have been after I released mine. So I want to compare and see, I did mine on the fly. I want to kind of compare and see where we align, where we don't align. It's something I really don't do every year because I usually don't like to look at everybody else's mock drafts, as I don't want any bias. I don't want to feel like I've got to, follow in somebody else's footsteps, which I think you guys know I'm not going to do that anyway. So it's interesting. I already took a look, and let's just say we're not even close. Not even close. So that's a good thing. It's a good thing because last year I wasn't close to anybody, and I ended up getting 26 out of 32 first-round picks correct. And the team, the player, the position, everything. It was my best first round ever. Lions, I think I hit the first 2, if not 3. I think it was the first 2. It wasn't the third one because I was at Tesla. I had no idea who that was, or at least not in the third round. So we'll review some of that stuff this morning. We'll go around the league again. We'll check out what's happening, the latest news. Cam Jordan, some new remarks, I guess, from the other day with Cam Jordan. So where does that fit? And are the Lions still interested in another edge rusher before they get to the draft? I would say probably not. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on the whole Brad and Dan saga. I think I covered that pretty well yesterday. I'm not going to give that any more airplay. That's what they want. I'm not doing it. I just wish people would be better in life and stop with the BS. So, yeah, if you get some good questions going this morning, Brian Brady says, let's ask good question. What happens if we don't make the playoffs? Oof. Could you imagine if we don't make the playoffs this year with a 4th place schedule? Could you imagine if... Hold on, I got to subscribe to my own channel. What's going on here? I've never seen that happen before. YouTube was asking me to subscribe to my own channel. I mean, I'm logged in under my account. That's odd. Maybe it's just something that they normally do. I don't know. So, yeah, if we miss the playoffs this year, that would be catastrophic. Okay? It would because of the fan base. But I have to remind y'all, like, you know, and I'm not just gonna do it from memory. Let's revisit something real quick. So that's a good question. Let's take a look. Tell me a GM. Name a GM in the chat. Who do you want me to look up? Les Snead, Howie Roseman, Brandon Bean, Spy Tech. I mean, who is it that you want me to go in and try to compare? Audio seems like it's really down this morning. Is my audio good? Yeah, it says it is. Just doesn't seem as full this morning. I don't. Gotta love technology. So name a GM that you would like me to kind of compare to, and we'll do it real quick. I just saw your message about your madre there, Brian. Glad she's doing well, man. Glad she's doing well. If we get enough people in today, I do have something else that I needed to do, but we'll see if we get enough people in the chat today. I think people are just kind of sick of the off season. They're sick of the doldrums of the off season and the BS that's flying around. And nobody has time. Nobody has time for that stuff. All right, so if we miss the playoffs, should Brad be fired? No, absolutely not. Dan can only play with the backups he's given. I don't want to hear we were injured. I don't care. Okay. Well, you can pump whatever narrative you want, but I'll be straight up with you, like I always am. Number one, we've always been injured. Top 6 team. We just did it yesterday. We are the number 1 injured team again. So it matters. It absolutely matters. You can't say, well, you know what? I'll take all the healthy guys, and you know, I can't accept the injured guys. Like, if they get injured, it shouldn't count. The Chiefs didn't make the playoffs last year. Do you know why? They were injured. Patrick Mahomes blew out his ACL or whatever, PCL, whatever it was, Achilles. So it matters. Like, if you lose your quarterback, your season's over. There's not a backup quarterback in this league that can really go the distance right now, taking over a team. There could be 1 or 2, and really no name is popping into my head right now that I would feel comfortable with. So it absolutely matters, man. You can't just say that, oh, I don't care that we were injured. We still should have made it. Okay. I'll use that against you. In 2024 or 2020, 2024, what happened? One of the most injured teams in the league. We win the 1 seed. We go to the divisional round and we lose because we don't have anybody to play. So it does matter. We still made the playoffs at 15-2 with the 1 seed, and that was because of the backups that Brad gave Dan. But I think that's the wrong way to look at it. It's not Brad giving Dan anything. See, the hierarchy in Detroit is different than what a lot of fans understand. These guys are 50-50. Dan has 50% control. Brad has 50% control. And yes, that creates a problem if they don't agree on something. But it also creates symmetry in that these guys are more aligned than they are not. So if Dan wants something done, it's his team, it's his roster. Like, he can do whatever he wants with his players. Brad's the GM. Obviously, he would have more of the final say, but that's not the functioning reality for these guys. They work hand in hand together. So the BS that's being pumped right now, it doesn't make any sense at all. Number one. Number two, it's clickbait season, man. That's what it is. People aren't good enough to do a 4-hour show every day or a 3-hour show every day and write multiple articles every day and digest the draft and evaluate 50, 60, 70 players, write up articles on every single one of them, and then write them again, right? And then do video. Like, it's not an easy talent. It's pretty difficult just to do one of those things, let alone 5 or 6 of those things. I do 5 or 6 of those things. So having a really good pulse on the team, the league, college, I mean, all of it, it gives you a broader scope to kind of see, through the lens of what's really going on in the league. And I'll tell you right now that Brad has given Dan, if that's what you're believing, an amazing roster every year. But being the 6th most injured team in the league and hovering around 1, 2, or 3 every single season, like that's almost impossible to do anything with. If you ask the GMs around the league, matter of fact, if you don't have a subscription to XM Radio, I would advise that you get one. Start listening to Channel 88. Start listening to those guys that were players, former GMs. They know what they're talking about. Almost everybody's been highly supportive of Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes outside of local media. And there's only a couple of local media people that are not supportive consistently. It used to be Carlos Menarez, who was the only one that, everybody hated. And now this is the new Carlos Menarez that's out there, and it's even worse. And I don't care. Everybody at heavy.com, they're just clickbaiters, man. That's it. So you can't believe in all these narratives. But to get back to the root of your question, this is why I don't want to spend time on that stuff. To get back to the root of your question, if the Lions miss the playoffs, yeah, that would be catastrophic. However, since I didn't see any GMs in the name or in the chat, GM names in the chat, I'm just gonna do what I've been doing. I'll go to Howie Roseman. Okay. We'll go to Howie Roseman because I think a lot of people respect this one. So here's Howie Roseman's profile. I guess I got to back it up a little bit so you can actually see it. All right, 2010. This is when he became the general manager of the Eagles. They went 10-6. Well, largely that's because of the team that was already there, right? And I haven't gone in to look to see how many players they cut, who were the holdovers, but I'll just venture a guess, largely because of the players that were there. They lost the wild card. Well, actually, yeah, I'll just slide that over. That makes it easier, and then I can make it bigger. One more. There we go. Now you guys can see it better. So in his first season, they go 10-6. They lost the wild card. Well, in 2011, they didn't make the playoffs. In 2012, they didn't make the playoffs. In 2013, they lost the wild card. In 2014, they didn't make the playoffs. In 2015, they didn't make the playoffs. In 2016, they didn't make the playoffs. So in his first 7 seasons, they didn't even advance past the wild card one time. Yet, Brad Holmes, in his 3rd season, went to the NFC Championship with 2 home field wins in the playoffs. And in his 4th season, won the 1 seed with absolutely nobody on the roster. All injured, all at home. So in the first 7 seasons of Howie Roseman's career as GM with the Eagles, Brad is 10 times better than him. In his 8th season, he won the Super Bowl. So would it be catastrophic for the fan base if we didn't go to the playoffs? Yes. But is it catastrophic that you didn't make the playoffs and that you couldn't win a Super Bowl the next year? No. Those two things don't align. And I'll use Seattle as an example. The Seattle Seahawks were nowhere on anybody's radar other than mine with Sam Darnold that they were going to go in and win a Super Bowl in 2025. But how did they do it? The exact way that the Eagles were doing it, because between 2014, 15, and 16, and 17, they were drafting extremely well. They had some losing seasons. Brad hasn't had a losing season in 4 years. The Eagles had 2 losing seasons right before they won a Super Bowl. Okay, so they win their Super Bowl in 2017. That was the only backup quarterback that I've ever seen, which he was a former starter, go win a Super Bowl in the way that he did, the manner that he did. I mean, that was incredible, right? Extremely rare situation happening in 2017. You'll probably never see it again. 2018, they lost the division. 2019, they lost the wild card. 2020, they're already out of the playoffs. 2021, they lost the wild card. 2022, they go back to the Super Bowl and lose. After the Super Bowl, they didn't even advance past the wild card, and then they won it again in 2024. So we can't evaluate past right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are in the 6th season of Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell. And right now, they have a better win-loss record. They have a better playoff record and a 1 seed before Howie Roseman even got a playoff win. So you can absolutely miss me with all of that stuff. That if we don't make the playoffs, Brad should be fired. No. I think that when you look at hindsight and you start looking at players that were injured, well, I mean, that might be the most irresponsible thing anybody could do. I think ownership needs to look at it from the standpoint of what's happening right inside. What's happening with our team? How is our culture? What do we have in the pipe for in the pipeline for players that are going to be pretty good players? How are we drafting? The core elements of this team have grown. I said it last night. We haven't even gotten to the draft yet, but the core elements of this team have gone from, let me get this off the screen. I'll come back to this in a minute with a different GM if you'd like. I don't care which one. We'll evaluate them all. The core elements of this team has grown from 2023, where we had about 18 core elements that were all just drafted in 21 and 22, and a couple of free agents, Jared Goff being one that we brought in, that those were core elements to this team. And now entering 2026, we have about 28 or 29 core pieces, and we haven't even been to the draft yet, which will pull another 2 or 3, maybe 4, but at least 2 or 3. I mean, that's the standard for Brad. It's not the standard for every other team. And so if you're telling me we have 30 core elements, 30 core players that are all starters, that play at an extremely high level, as long as they all stay healthy, we should be able to win. But we can't do anything about the refs. We can't do anything about the weather. We can't do anything about the shit schedule that we get where you're playing 3 games in 11 days. That stuff matters too. To a lesser extent, the fans really understand the fact that, and maybe you do, maybe all of you do. If a guy can't even get a couple of days rest, and then they have to travel, I mean, just ask yourself, anytime you've jumped on a plane, if you don't do it every day of your life or a few times a week or even once a week for your job, how do you feel when you land? Jet lag is a real thing, right? Usually you need a half a day, maybe a whole day to kind of get your feet back underneath you. It's no different for an NFL player. They're in peak physical shape, yes, but that stuff all weighs on how that game is about to go. Big shout out to someone just dropped a big $20 donation. The Purple Puma, oh, love that name, says, all I'm focused on for this coming season is to win our division and remain relatively healthy, get into the playoffs, and I don't really care about the 1 seed. After winning a playoff game, everything else is up to fate. Man, I agree with you, dude. Appreciate the big donation, man. Thumbs up to you, and keep rocking on, man. Love it. Good work. Good work. So, is there another GM you guys would like me to go over? I mean, I can pull Les Snead in here. Will the refs ever be full-time? I don't know. I can't answer that. I mean, I don't work for the NFL, so I have no clue. No clue. But you know what, since you got me on this whole thing, about the playoffs, would that mean that Brad should get fired? No. Now, if Brad doesn't assemble a good team and all these guys stay healthy, but the team just isn't that good, yeah, then you're probably going to start having conversations. But what's the conversation? 4 winning seasons in a row, couple of playoff wins, 2 playoff berths, and now you're into your 6th season. Yeah, playoffs is the bar for entry here. Playoffs is where we need to be. And operating from a 4th place schedule, yeah, you would hope, right? You would hope. But going back and looking at, Howie Roseman, they've won 14 games twice. They've won 13 games once. And then they've won 11 games once. They've won 10 games 3 times. And outside of that, they've never won more than 9 games. And that's over the course of, 15 seasons. And Brad's gone, 13-1, 9-8, 15-2, 13-4, 9-8. He's doing fine. 12-5. He's doing fine. And so is Dan. I mean, Dan's doing a great job. Last year was, it was probably the worst case scenario. The new coaches. Yeah, I'm not as worried about new coaches, because if that were the case, if you have to bring in new coaches every other year, new coordinators, then explain why other teams can do it, right? And they can go and win some football games. They may not win a Super Bowl, but they're going to win some football games. But it's all relative. I think that you have to look at every angle. Were they a 4th place schedule? Were they a worst to first kind of team? How they've been drafting over the last 3-4 seasons. Because the draft really only matters for about 3 or 4 seasons. If then you sign some core players out of those drafts, well, then those drafts are still relevant. But the drafts that are most relevant are last year and this year. Those are the drafts that are most relevant to this year. Go look at Seattle. It was a large number of their 2024 and 5 rosters. Drafts that helped them get to the Super Bowl. Big time. Big time. Just because, let's take a look at Les Snead. I know that these are 2 that I can speak to pretty easily. All right, here we go. Les Snead. And then please drop another GM. in the chat so I can look at someone that I haven't looked at yet. Oops, wrong one. All right, here we go. Les Snead became the GM in 2012. He went 7-8. I got to make this a little smaller so we can see it. He went 7-8, did not make the playoffs in year 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. 5 seasons, blanked. He didn't have more than 7 wins. Then they went to the wild card in their 6th season and lost. And then they went to the Super Bowl with Jared Goff and lost. Think about that for a moment. They didn't even make the playoffs for 5 seasons in a row, lost the wild card, and then almost won a Super Bowl or had a chance to win a Super Bowl. Like, you guys, I could care less that we missed the playoffs last year. And this is why. This is exactly why. Coming out of the Super Bowl, which was not Jared Goff's fault. I can't stand when people say that. 2019, they didn't even make it back to the playoffs. And then 2020, they won the division, lost the division, or I think they won the division. But either way, they lost the divisional round. They get rid of Jared Goff. They bring in Matthew Stafford. I believe Jalen Ramsey was on the squad in 2020 already. They brought in Odell Beckham Jr., I want to say, prior to the season starting, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe he was a late season ad coming back from injury. But it wasn't like a trade deadline thing. Again, I could be wrong there. They didn't really do it. A lot of people tried to say that they went into trade deadline and did all these moves. They didn't. They literally brought in like 4 players between 2020 and 2021 that were even somewhat difference makers for that Super Bowl win. So then they bounced back after losing the division and then not making the playoffs the year before that. They win a Super Bowl in 2021. And since then, they didn't even go back to the playoffs the next year. Why? Because they had bloated contracts. They had to get rid of a lot of players. But look at this, 12-5 to 5-2. Now that I would be pissed about. You can't tell me that you're going to have a 12-5 season and then you're scraping the bottom barrel in 2022 with 5 wins. That would be concerning. But you have to go in and look at the injuries and what was happening, right? And so since they won the Super Bowl, they lost the wild card and lost the divisional round. It's no different than what Brad and Dan have done. The only difference is we were 17 minutes away from a Super Bowl and Aaron Glenn shit the bed. And the offense couldn't do anything. Ben Johnson shit the bed. Look, Dan Campbell is the head coach, right? But Dan Campbell's not the one calling plays. Dan Campbell and the coordinators on the sideline back then, in 2023, yeah, they communicate, but newsflash, you have 15 seconds to get the play called in. 15. And then the ears go out. You are no longer able to talk to Jared Goff or your Mike linebacker. There's no time for Dan Campbell to have an in-depth conversation with Aaron Glenn or Ben Johnson to dial up a play. No, you have a coordinator you're paying millions of dollars to. They are running the defense. You have a coordinator that you're paying millions of dollars to. He's running the offense. You've done your prep all week. You know what they expect. They know what to expect from you. Go win the game. There's nothing that Dan Campbell could have done in the throes of the game in the second half of 2023 that would have changed anything. There's probably 6 to 8 different scenarios that happened in that game, and every single one of them was the reason why they lost. It wasn't on all Dan Campbell. I think a lot of it has to do with the defense because the stubbornness, the over-aggressiveness of Aaron Glenn caught up to us. The 49ers adjusted. They came out in the second half, and they used our aggressive nature against us. But then we have Kendall Vildor in there. I mean, that dude should have never been in the game. But why was he in the game? Injury. If Kendall Vildor was never in that game, we win that game. Hands down. So here we go. 13 years, general manager for Les Snead. He's gone to the Super Bowl twice. He's won the Super Bowl once. And he's only been to the playoffs 6 times in 13 years. That is less than 50%. 6 times in 13 years. Brad has been to the playoffs 2 and 5. So he's doing just fine. Just fine. Let's do another one. Because I can, John. Because I can. That's why. Because it's my channel and I can talk about whatever I want. That's why. Question me, man. All right, let's talk about Brandon Beane. Brandon Beane has become the GM in 2017 for the Buffalo Bills. So you tell me, what is a better opportunity or a better record? What would make you more disappointed as a fan? That in 2017 you go to the wild card, you lose. In 2018, you don't make the playoffs. 2019 wild card loss, conference loss, division loss, conference loss. So they are always right there. Always right there, minus 1 season. They've had a phenomenal quarterback that everybody would say is better than Jared Goff. That everybody would say, or a lot of people would say, that they want in Detroit. But they can't even win a Super Bowl. They can't even get to the Super Bowl. So what would make you more frustrated as a fan, that you can get there every year and then the bottom falls out? Like, I think the Lions are operating from a very good situation. The other thing that happens here is these guys are kind of picking last in the draft all the time too. So their dynamic and how they handle their team and how they draft or how they do free agency is totally different from a team that is not a perennial winner, hasn't been a perennial winner. The Lions have been a winner for 4 seasons. We've made the playoffs twice. We've entered the postseason twice, excuse me. And that's not enough to change your philosophy. But I think when you look at every year, their best year was 2020 and 2024. So let's just venture down the road for a minute and let's take a look at what they did. That's any different from Brad, right? What did they do last year in free agency? How did they handle free agency? We'll get into, hey, big at ya. Thank you for joining the Lions Faithful, man. Good morning. Appreciate you. All right, here we go. So in 2025, they didn't go out and sign big dollar names to their roster, right? They brought in a wide receiver, Josh Palmer, from the Chargers. They brought in Michael Hochit, an edge defender from the Rams, and they signed him to a 3-year, $21 million deal, $7 million a year. Josh Palmer, they signed to about an $8.5 million, or I'm sorry, about a $9.75 million deal per year, roughly. And then they brought in Joey Bosa from the Chargers, 12.6 for 1 season. They brought in Larry O, defensive line, right around 6.7. Ty Johnson, Tre'Davious White, Elijah Moore, Damar Hamlin, Reggie. I mean, a lot of these guys were re-signs, right? Buffalo to Buffalo, that's a re-sign. They brought in Elijah Moore from Cleveland. They brought in Dane Jackson from the Panthers. Derek Forrest from Washington. So not much different than the Lions, right? Look at all these 1-year deals. One. I mean, look at them all. No different than Brad, is it? You got 2 3-year deals, 1 2-year deal, and out of the 16 players, you have 13 1-year deals. They went to the division. But explain this to me. Did Joey Bosa help them win a Super Bowl? Sure as hell didn't. Sure as hell didn't. Who did they get rid of that year? Oh, Von Miller. They got rid of Von Miller, and they went back to the conference in 2024. Last year, they didn't even make the playoffs. Oh, I got to go back to 24. Hold on. I got to go back to 24. Let me get this out of here. Get this out of here. Get this out of here. Get this one out of here. Now I can see. All right, let's go back 24. All right, they signed conference. Remember, they went to the conference. Wide receiver from Washington, $8 million a year. They re-signed Daquan Jones and A.J. Epinesa. 2 years at 16, 2 years at 12. So the most they spent in free agency was $8 million per year. $24 million. $24 million deal. They brought in Austin Johnson. They brought in Mitchell Trubisky. They brought in Mike Edwards. Dwayne Smoot. Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Lyle Collins. Nicholas Morrow. But here we go again. Look at all those one-year deals. So they brought in 20 players. And out of 20 players, they had 1, 2, 3, 4 2-year deals and 1 3-year deal. No different than Brad Holmes. See, this is how confident I am that I know that I can go from year to year to year to year without even looking at it. And I already know what it's going to look like. Because it's the same thing that every team does. It's no different. But for some reason, Lions fans and in the local hatchet jobs think that we're doing something that is way off the radar. Like, this is not what championship teams do. This is not what perennial winners do. For some reason, we're way different. It's the same exact blueprint that the Buffalo Bills are doing. So let me push my narrative now. Ready? 2025. They bring all that talent into 2025. They brought in your boy, Joey Bosa, and they didn't even make the playoffs. How about that? But y'all want Joey Bosa and Cam Jordan. Make it make sense, people. Because I'm giving you all the ammo. I'm giving you all the reasons, the truth, the honesty, the transparency about what's really going on. And how all of these hatchet jobs out there, just, they don't know football, man. This is a job to them. This is not passion to them. And if it is passion, it sure as hell don't look like it. It don't seem like it either. Let's see what's out here in Lions coverage. All right. Lions saved nearly $1.3 million on the Malcolm Rodriguez contract trick. I'm not sure what that means, but that's great. Ha! I love this. Jeremy Reisman says, if a rumor comes from someone who covers the team, yet that person wasn't the one who actually reported it, why do you think that is? Let's take a look. Let's see what's being said. Interesting. All right. This whole thing is silly, of course. Dan and Brad have had disagreements inside the building, but Valenti totally contradicts his point, acting like Dan is saying, where's all my players? If you actually listen to Dan's presser at the Combine, he actually hinted how this offseason would go by getting younger and hungrier players like they did in the past. Part of the fan base have completely turned on Brad for whatever reason. No, I think we know why. Because of the other hatchet job that makes claims about stolen fonts when he's the one stealing fonts right now. And you can go look at some stupid podcast that has about 7 or 8 episodes. Mine has hundreds, and it's the same thing. It's been that way. I mean, even today's thumb has been around for months, and it's been the same way. But yeah. So they even blame Brad for Marcus Davenport. Marcus Davenport was in New Orleans when Dan was coaching there. He was a Dan guy, not a Brad guy. To say Dan disagrees with Brad's signings all of a sudden this offseason doesn't really have any merit. It's actually quite the opposite. They've been pretty much in lockstep together this offseason, except for maybe Anzalone. But this, well, we don't know that either. I mean, I don't even know why this individual is saying that. We don't know if Dan wanted Anzalone back. But this obsession of the fan base that dislike Brad and call him bargain bin Brad need to relax. You can critique your team, but at least have the facts straight. If the ship ever goes down, it goes down with both of them. That is facts. Straight up, Ryan Anton, you win the day. Straight up, you win the day. Now, there's some smart football knowledge. So there you go. Like I said yesterday, there's only so many people that cover this team. Like, legit. I write about the team. I'm not a beat writer. I write about the team. I'm not in the room with a credential. I have credentials. I could go get credentialed. I could reach out to Solomon and ask him for a credential. We'll see where that goes. But I don't have the time. I can't drive to Detroit every single day. I don't live anywhere near Detroit. It would be near impossible. Now, during the season, when I'm already there, then it makes sense to go post-game to do some things. But outside of that, that may not even fit what they want. You know, I don't know. But the point is, there's only so many people that cover the team. And there's only one person that wrote about it that actually is there covering the team. And there's one person that is on the radio that started the rumor. All right, so anyway. Let's do another one. Yeah, it's time to move to Detroit. Trust me, things are in the works, man, but I got to be honest with you. I had something happen last night and I can't speak to it. It's funny because it's just more validation. But let's just put it this way. I had a major analytics company reach out to me, and there could be something there that I might be interested in. It's what I do every day anyway, man. This is my passion, is going through statistics and analytics, getting a better, broader understanding of the game, the new version of the game, and all the new statistics, stats, everything that you guys read on or take, big consideration in. There's all these weird stats out there, right? But a lot of them are made up. They're somebody's idea. They start tracking something, and then it turns into something. But that doesn't mean that it's a natural statistic. And it doesn't mean that it's been, borne out 20 years to make sure that it's accurate either. I'll put it this way, just like a medication needs like 10 years worth of vetting and peer reviews and, studies and all that stuff. Same thing with statistics, man. I started my T-TAPs and my RAM proprietary systems, right? Roster roulette and the player aggregate system that I've done now for three years, and I'm nowhere close to where I want to be to even say that it's fully accurate yet. That's why I use it internally. I show you guys when we get closer to the draft what it's done, what it's built, and where these players are. But I'm not comfortable with it yet. It's been pretty accurate, but that could just be luck. Could just be luck. So, or it could just be me. I don't know. It could just be me making the picks based on what I'm seeing. But so it needs time, right? It needs time. Big shout out to Rather Be Fishing. $5 super chat says, he says, you're not a beat writer. That's why I watch you. No agenda. Just facts and honest opinions based upon educated knowledge. Keep up the good work. Well, you keep up the good work, man. Appreciate you dropping in every day. And I think that that's a big part of it too, is not having not having an agenda, no narrative. I fight against those. I try to. You know, the biggest reason why, and I've said this, you know, when I first started, is this was all born out of passion. You know, waking up after cancer, like like if I died today, how many regrets would I have? Right? Like regrets. Remember that dude that had the tattoo that says R-A-G? Yeah. Regrets. I would have had, everyone's going to have regrets when they die. They didn't do this. They, you know, didn't tell this person they loved them. Or they didn't spend time with their mom or dad more. Whatever it is, you're going to have regrets. So at that point, I was like, I need to do what I'm passionate about. You know, I've been passionate about this team ever since I was a little kid. Been going to games for my whole life, season tickets, my whole life, in the family. And then, you know, myself with my dad and the group that he assembled and put all that stuff together when I was a little kid. So it's always been there. And I don't know why I didn't do it 10 years ago. Could you imagine if I started doing this 10 years ago? Probably have 2-3 million subscribers by now. But I didn't. I was too funneled into corporate America and the rat race. I'm done with all that. I want to do what makes me happy. I want to do it what, you know, I feel lends to something positive. And this is a positive outlet, even though there's a lot of negativity out there. So we'll keep being positive as much as we can. I hate the days that we have to be negative, you know. And there's a difference between being negative and being, you know, analytical and critical and holding people accountable. Two totally different things here. Being negative is, you know, being negative about the team, consistently making up lies, clickbait, promoting narratives. It's all toxic waste media negativity. Being critical or analytical or holding, you know, people accountable is totally different. That stuff's okay. You know, to go in and say, you know what? I wish Aiden's ADOT was better. He ranks 160th out of 206 players. It's just not good enough. How can we help Aiden get better? What can he do differently? Or better yet, how can Kelvin Shepard help Aiden get better? Or the defense overall? You don't want to see Aiden off the field, yet you want to see him off the field getting a break, right? Okay. And if he's not that great against the run all the time, well, then maybe he needs to come out on first or second down when it's definite run down and you have other guys on the team that are better against the run. That's born out of statistics, analytics, and film. And if that's the case, there's nothing wrong with that. You see, there's nothing wrong with being critical, using analytics and statistics to create the storyline and the facts and the fact-based knowledge that you're going to deliver, and then talk about it and find a way to make it better. But what happens is people, fans, whatever, they internalize that as hate, or they internalize that as, I'm a U of M fan. How dare you talk about Aiden Hutchinson? Because that's what happens. I love all my U of M fans out there. I'm not a U of M fan, but I could care less because this is the NFL, not FBS or NCAA. It's the NFL. I separated Saturdays from Sundays a long time ago. But you still have a fan base that can't separate. So anytime you say anything negative about certain players, man, it hits hard. I don't have that same problem with other players, right? We don't have that same problem at all talking about Malcolm Rodriguez or Alex Anzalone or Penei Sewell or Jared Goff or anyone else. Terrion Arnold, Kirby Joseph, Brian Brandt. It doesn't matter. The only players that seem to cause issues for me is Aiden Hutchinson or J-Mo. Every once in a while, J-Mo. But you all know me and know that it comes from a place of love and analytics and facts. That's it. That's all it is. So, anyway. Tilla says the Lions spent 20 seasons on CBS Radio, the longtime parent company of 97-1, before pulling out. It's always a good idea to, I'm just kidding. Pulling out of the relationship in 2016 because of the bad blood over opinionated coverage of the team. I didn't know that, Attila. If that's facts, thank you for sharing it. Lions are especially upset with popular afternoon host Mike Valenti. Interesting. I didn't know that either. But I do know, or at least it's been shared, that other sports agencies have lost their credentials because of that. See, yeah, I'm not surprised, Nick. I'm not surprised. Yeah, there's things about everybody's game that you can be critical about. I mean, that's the joy of sports, right? Is that you can always be better. I mean, even in your own personal life, you can't tell me that you piss excellence every single day of your life. Nobody does. We all make mistakes. We all lose deals. Whatever it is, we can always be better. That's why one of the phrases, that I always taught my sales agents was, you've got the ABCs of sales, right? Always be closing. But then you got the AGBs, always getting better. So you always have to get better at what you're doing, because if you're not, you're never going to be closing deals. Anyway, let's move forward. I'm done with the GM talk. I went through 3 of them. I mean, I could go through many more, and I think you're going to see the same thing. So let's kind of move on to the next topic. We'll do that right when we get back.
Throwing middle, caught inside the 5. Jameer Gibbs to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. 14 yards on the strike. Goff to Gibbs. You can't cover that man one-on-one. You just can't do it.
Nice job.
Jared takes the snap, back looking, throwing middle. Got Amon-Ra inside the 2, to the 1, to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra, St. Brown. Amon-Ra, St. Brown.
Nice job.
Mariota's got it back. Pressure comes. He's hit. Slips out of it. Rolling to his right. Now he's going down. Brian Branch got him. Sack for the Lions. Snap taken by Mariota. Wants to throw it. Gonna get hit. Gonna get sacked.
Yes,
Take it down. Brian Branch got him second time today.
Nice job.
Hands it to Gibbs, running right, runs through a tackle, gets down to the 10, Gibbs to the 5, still fighting, down to the 2, down to the 1, to the end zone!
Yes.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! He did not quit!
Nice job.
Off to throw again, does, middle, J-Mo, angling.
Pressured by Hutchinson, he goes down again.
Hey, welcome in to the Rise and Grind Morning Show. It is 8:41 a.m. We're going to get into our second topic of the day. And that is, I want to do a little comparison here between myself and Daniel Jeremiah. Now, the question is, where did I put it? Let's see if it lives here. Looks like it does. Let me fix this up real quick. So I want to do a little comparison here between Daniel Jeremiah's most recent mock draft and where he's feeling that some of these players are going to end up. And in the mock draft that I did the other night with everybody, it was kind of quick. Well, not really quick. It wasn't quick enough, but it was not done with all of the research. Now, I did some research live to kind of show you a little bit about what I do when I start researching other teams. What I look at, I dig into all their depth charts. I look at all their free agency signings. I mean, that's what analysis is. That's what draft analysts do, is you have to look at the entire situation. The other situation is, what knowledge do you have that you learned based on relationships, right? So whatever that knowledge is that your relationships are telling you. And before I forget, the topic right after this, I'm going to get into what I've learned about Taylor Decker and what I've learned about Marcus Davenport. And was there a third one that I wanted to discuss today? I don't know if there was. But at least those two. Oh, Hendon Hooker. Hendon Hooker was the other one. Is there an opportunity for 1, 2, or 3, all of these players to come back? So we'll talk about that next. I'm not going to go into that right now. So I got my notes. We're going to look at DJ's 3.0, which came out on the 17th. And it's interesting. So this weekend on DetroitFootballJournal.com, if you're not subscribed, please subscribe, because at the end of the month, I'm going to be polling the 6-month free membership. So those of you that got in, you will have your 6-month membership, which means you'll be good pretty much up until the season starts, right around that time. And then after that, I'm going to make a very unique offer to everybody that would like to stay in as a paid member and continue to help the channel grow and Detroit Football Journal grow. The goal is not to make a boatload of money off this stuff. Like, that's not the goal, but I do work hard. I don't get paid by anybody. So we need to generate something to pay for all of the things that I need to do to continue to generate. The goal is to get an annual flight, everywhere, which I've looked into a couple of options to be able to travel everywhere and anywhere I want to go as cheap as I can, so that I can bring more valuable information, so that I can hit 10, 12 pro days a year and not have to worry about it. But go get you to Attila's question. Is there is there anything that, like Attila said, is there a site that tracks NFL teams at pro days and who might be looking, and who they might be looking at? So he tried to look it up last night, couldn't find anything. And so my response to that is, see, this is where media is supposed to be helpful, right? So the media that actually travels to the pro days, well, they take a look around. Oh, hey, there's Brad Holmes. Oh, hey, there's the Lions scout. Hey, there's the Bengals scout. You might walk up and try to initiate a conversation. Hey, who are you looking at today? Anything, you just try to have a conversation, right? They may not give you anything, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, what you can go back and write is, today at Georgia's Pro Day, I saw Brad Holmes and Lions scout, yada, 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 yada. Here's who performed today. Here's how they performed today. Oh, hey, I witnessed, X, Y, and Z having a conversation together, maybe something to it. Or, hey, they had a formal meeting today with X, Y, and Z players. So that's the information that I want to bring in and I want to gather. And it's just all part of the process, right? It's all part of the process. So got to figure out a way to do it. Hey, Renegade Philosopher, that's spot on, brother. There you go, man. You are one of the few. You are one of the rare. And you are now one of the respected. He put in the chat here that he wanted to apologize for misinterpreting what I had mentioned the other day about Aiden Hutchinson. You disagree fundamentally. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that about Hutch. But when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'll own it. Thanks again for taking time to respond. Thank you for publicly responding like that, because it's very rare that people do that, man. Not a lot of people will take ownership. And as a matter of fact, it's funny that this is kind of happening now, because let me get off in a quick tangent. David Betts. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but every once in a while, something will pop up on YouTube with him. And he used to be from way back in the day when he used to do a lot of motivational stuff. Now he's deep off into the politics stuff, which I try not to go down that road. But an old video of his popped up yesterday, and it was one of the motivational ones. And it was talking about why people are successful more than others. What is that one, fundamental reason or foundational reason as to why they can separate themselves? I mean, this is all inclusive of everything, like players, coaches, GMs, scouts, everybody and anybody. I don't care if you're a cook at McDonald's. Like, if you don't flip the burgers on time, I know they're probably not made that way, but you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're not making your food right and it looks like trash and you open up your burger and everything falls out or you forgot the pickles, you know what I'm saying? You need to accept responsibility for that. And that at the end of the video is what he said is, I've lost tons of high stakes evaluations, or I've lost negotiations, or, in sports, I've gone up against people and I've lost, to guys that were lower than me, not as good as me, guys that are better than me. Well, I have too. But at the end of it, it's the people that are going to accept responsibility for themselves are the ones that typically end up thriving in life. So you have two choices when something like that happens. You can either go out and say, you know what, it was you, and you is the reason why this happened to me. Or you can do what I try to do, which is, what did I do wrong? How can I get better? What did I miss? Why wasn't I in shape? So I think what's the old adage they say, for every one finger you point, there's four more back at you, or three more back at you, however that goes. Same thing, man. Accepting responsibility and owning your mistakes will get you a lot further in life. It does something to your brain, too. Your brain, it gets wired different. So anyway, sorry, I had to do that because it just came up. I got to change the date. See, I forgot to change the date. And I forget to change the date every damn day. I just need to put a sticky note. Change the date. Every day I forget about it. But we got it right now. And like yesterday, I updated an article because I screwed up. And I don't do that very often because when I release an article, I've typically read it 5, 6, 7 times. I've gone over it. I've double checked my resources. And if I don't like something, I won't release it because I don't want to be that person that anyone can ever come at me and say something. And it's happened twice this year. And that's 2 times more than I've ever had before. I don't like it. But I relied on a site, but it was my fault for not double checking. But I went back and reread it again, and I'm like, that's not the same number that I had before. And I think I even mentioned when I read the article that I'm like, the 83.3%, that's a really odd number. And they were all 8.3%. Something wasn't adding up, but it wasn't adding up right then. But it added up yesterday. So I fixed it, and we got the right information. So, all right, let's take a look at this. Daniel Jeremiah. Okay, so how do I compare to Daniel Jeremiah this year will be interesting. Now, I've always tried to model my game after the elites in this process. The Mel Kipers, the Field Yates, the Todd McShays, the Daniel Jeremiahs, and the many, many others. Now, I've listened to them all for years. I don't have as much time anymore. I wish that I did. I really enjoyed the conference call with Daniel Jeremiah this year. I enjoyed it last year. I just wasn't in the room, and I didn't get to ask a question this year because I screwed up. I didn't put my hand up fast enough. But I learned, right? So now I know for next year. So I respect a lot of what these guys do, but I also know a lot of them get a lot wrong. And so that's where I'm trying to be different. And I don't know to what degree that these guys are following narratives. Are they trying not to give out too much information because they know so much information? I mean, imagine that if Daniel Jeremiah got every single one of these picks right, or even 50% right, He's an NFL media analyst for the NFL. And if he has inside information and you're sharing that information, that would be a big no-no, right? And teams would stop talking to you. So you got to kind of take a lot of the stuff that they put out with a grain of salt. But at the same time, like Daniel Jeremiah is like, in my opinion, the most intelligent, smartest football analyst out there. I'm not going to venture too far left or right on the whole narrative stuff or what he's allowed to do or not allowed to do because I don't know. But I do know this, and I've asked y'all at the beginning of the season, the off season, to save these articles and then go back and look at them. Or if you're like me and you print them out and you want to save them that way, which I need to do today, I'm going to print them out. I'm going to create a little binder so that we can go back and say, okay, what changed and why did it change? I do that stuff just because I'm a creature of habit, and I want to know why did they move this player all the way up, and I'll look at that after the season. Which reminds me, I got a package from my dad I need to open because I'm willing to bet, without even knowing what's in it, I'm willing to bet it's probably the NFL Draft magazine. You know what? Pause. I'll be right back. All right, sorry about that. But I'm interested to see what I got this year. Yeah, next time I will, K-Biz. I forgot to hit the button. All right, we got to pause for just a sec because I wanted to open this with you guys. This is something that something my dad does every year, man. He usually sends me something around this time of year because he knows how passionate I am about this stuff. And of course, he taped it up like my grandfather would, 50 pounds of tape, so I can't even get it open. Oh, look at that. There we go. Yep. I knew it. Oh, and it's not just one this year. Oh, he really went all out. Let's see what the note says. Okay. I'm just going to read you the note. I don't normally do this stuff, but he says, Will, hi. Thought you would enjoy these again this year. There are many electronic sources to get this data. But the books are always good to have. Your analysis will be great again this year, for sure. Maybe you find a nugget or two that helps. Okay. The rest of that I'll keep to myself. So anyway, we got the Lindy Sports Pro Football Draft. I mean, I have a whole collection of these things. I've been doing this stuff for years. He's been sending me these things for years. The 2026 Draft Preview by Athlon Sports. And the USA Today 2026 NFL Draft Guide. Top 100 mock draft, what each NFL team needs. So I got some reading material now. These things are not cheap, man. These are like $15 a piece. Yeah, they're all $15 a piece. So you got $45 in 3 magazines. So when my digital magazine drops next year and it's $15 a person, now you know why. Except mine's year long. It's not just one print. It's all year long. All right, enough BSing. Let's get into it. Appreciate you guys all hanging out with me this morning. Okay, let's get back to it here. Where did I put that, though? Gotta figure out where I just had everything set up because it's not my normal spot today. There we go. All right, so Daniel Jeremiah. Of course, he has Fernando Mendoza at number 1. I mean, obviously, for obvious reasons, I do too. So that's mine on the screen now. At number 2, he has Arvel Reese. He says, I go back and forth between Reese and David Bailey here. Reese, with experience playing on the line and off the ball, gives the Jets more scheme flexibility in their 3-4 defense. I would agree, because I also have Arvel Reese at number 2. This is probably the most interesting one up next. Francis Maui-Goa. Nobody has put Maui-Goa to the Cardinals other than this guy, me. And remember, I did this before Daniel Jeremiah put his out. Next up, you've got number 4, Tennessee Titans. He has Jeremiah Love. I have Monroe Freely. And that is probably the biggest jump I've ever given Monroe Freely on draft day. But my thought process here is they need to protect Cam Ward. And I'm not so sure that they've done enough to protect Cam Ward through free agency just yet and what they have on their roster. Keldrick Falk, I have at number 5 going to the Giants. He has Sonny Styles. So Styles would be a monster playing behind the Giants' dynamic front line, and he is correct. And I think that the Giants have a lot on their line already and in backups. So Keldrick Falk, that would be a big reach. But that's why this is so early in the season. And the thing about Keldrick Falk that I'll add real quick here is Keldrick Falk has a tremendous amount of run stuff ability. He would make a good defensive end for the Lions from that perspective. But if you're looking for high pass rush upside, he's in a developmental phase. It's going to be at least 1 to 3 seasons before that pass rush upside is there. So if you think of adding Keldrick Falk to any team right now, especially the Lions, you're not going to get that. But what you will get is you're going to get a guy, and maybe he surprises us, but I think you're going to get a guy that is going to stuff the run and will be able to be involved in at least 3 out of 4 downs. But he'll be at least a 2-down defensive end to start in his career. And I think on 3rd down, if the Lions did bring him in, that is where DJ Wonnum is inserted into the game. Or if Keldrick Falk comes in to help against the run game, maybe that's where Aiden Hutchinson gets a little bit of rest, right? Just for one play. Remember, it's depending on what the play is. The Cleveland Browns, he has Carnell Tate. I have Olavide Loney. And quite honestly, I'm going to probably continue with putting an offensive lineman to the Browns at least early, because I think when they get to their later pick, they're not going to be able to get the offensive lineman that they really want. And Olavide Loney, not only can he kick inside to be a potential center of the future, but he's going to end up being an all-pro guard, man. And you need someone to protect Shedeur Sanders. I don't care what quarterback they have. They need to protect the quarterback. Ruben Bain goes to number 7 to the Washington Commanders. He says Washington was aggressive to fill the needs of edge rusher in free agency. Bain has the versatility to play from the edge on early downs and then slide inside in sub packages, making him a nice complement to Whey and Chason. And see, the way I view this is that would be triple dipping. Like, you just filled those holes in free agency and you filled them with really good players, I don't think you're going Bane, and I don't think you're going Bane with short arms. Not yet. I think that would be a big reach. I went with Jeremiah Love. Here, I got to slide this up. I went with Jeremiah Love. And I think that when you look at what the Commanders are needing right now, they need more offense. And I think the Commanders are going to be right back in the hunt this year, honestly. All right, next up, he has for the Saints, David Bailey. He says, with a few young, established pass rushers on the roster, New Orleans could use some fresh legs off the edge. Bailey gives the Saints a true fastball to throw at opposing offenses, And I have Sonny Styles. So let's recap 1 through 8. On picks 1, 2, and 3, we were in lockstep. Pick 4, he had Jeremiah Love. I have Monroe Freeling. Pick 5, he had Sonny Styles. I had Keldrick Falk. Pick 6, I have Loney. He has a wide receiver, Tate. Pick 7, I have the running back in Love. He has Bain. Pick 8, he has David Bailey. I have Sonny Styles. So, I mean, David Bailey is kind of, he's an edge rusher, so he's not a linebacker. But we're going to get pretty close on some other ones here in just a moment. Number 9, I have Mansour Delane going to Kansas City. Now, if Jeremiah Love is on the board, he's going to Kansas City. I could also see the Kansas City Chiefs taking Kenyon Sadiq right here. He has Spencer Fano. So Fano can start immediately at right tackle. And so there you go, people. How many times I've been telling y'all, Fano is not a fit in Detroit. He is a right tackle or a guard. And that is exactly what Daniel Jeremiah is also stating here. He says that he can start immediately at right tackle and eventually kick inside of the guard if necessary. The Chiefs will have excellent information on him because of Andy Reid's relationship with the former Utah head coach and former BYU teammate and Kyle Whittingham. I don't believe Fano will ever be a left tackle, and unless we're putting Penei Sewell at left tackle, it would make zero sense to bring in Fano unless you're putting Fano at guard, which would be left guard. So those are your only choices on Fano. Number 10, the Bengals, he has Caleb Downs. For me, at number 9, I had Mansour Delane, and then I had Ruben Bain. Now, that is a lot further up for me for Bain than I have put him in the past. I still think that there's a serious opportunity where Bain is going to slip outside the top 10 and could even slip outside the top 20. Even if he was available for the Lions, I just don't see them taking Bain. But then again, I've been wrong before. I could be seriously wrong right here. So we don't agree here. He has Downs. I have Bain. Number 11, that's where I have Carnell Tate going to the Miami Dolphins. Very simply, if Tate is on the board at number 11, they just lost, a lot of players, right? And they're paying a ton of players. But they don't have their speedster anymore, and they need another wide receiver. So I think wide receiver makes the most sense. Well, according to Jeremiah, he thinks that's where Mansour Delane is going to go. He says there's still a lot of holes to fill on Miami's roster. The Dolphins solve a corner spot with Delane, one of the draft's most consistent players on tape, I would agree. Number 12, he has Jermod McCoy. And so do I. Going to the Cowboys. What he says about McCoy is McCoy's draft range is somewhat difficult to predict. I would agree. Considering he missed all of last season with the ACL, and you have yet to see him work out for scouts. His 2024 game film is excellent, though, and I would agree there, too. I don't know that McCoy even gets taken in the top 20, but if Mansour Delane is already gone, which I had him gone at 9, I do think that McCoy is an interesting option. I also think that Avion Terrell could go that early. Let's just go right to number 13. That's where I had Spencer Fano going. And quite honestly, I think that they need to protect Matthew Stafford if they want to have a shot this year. And their offensive line, I think it was Alaric Jackson, is weak. They had a couple other issues on their offensive line. I don't have my notes in front of me today, so I can't remember it all. But that's where I had Fano going, is to the Rams. And he had Mekhi Lemon. Mekhi Lemon. And where he says, according to Ian Rappaport, the Rams were in on trade discussions for A.J. Brown. That's interesting, which points to their desire to add a receiver. You see, that's where he's using his inside information, right? And he's trying to figure out exactly what these teams are going to do. The thing is, you can get another dynamic receiver in the second round if you have a second-round pick. There's going to be plenty of receivers that can add some dynamic ability to your team in round 2. Anyway, Lemon has the characteristics that they covet, and he does. I mean, he's going to be a better version of a Cooper Kupp. He's going to be a lot better version of a Cooper Kupp, as long as he can keep his head screwed on straight, right? Which I don't think there's many issues with that with him. Number 14. Baltimore Ravens. Jordan Tyson. I have Kenyon Sadiq. I'm telling you right now, I should probably have depth charts pulled up, or I should at least have my notes pulled up, but I don't. You put Kenyon Sadiq on the Ravens squad, this opens up all sorts of stuff. They lost Isaiah Likely this year, right? So they need another tight end. I do know that their tight end room is very thin, and there's not very many tight ends in this draft. If you can't get Sadiq or Max Clare, I would say that you've probably just lost your only opportunity at elevating your tight end room immediately. The rest of those guys, I feel, are going to take a season or two before they start to even be an average tight end at the next level. It's not the best tight end draft. Number 15, I have David Bailey. Now, this is where we start to get back into lockstep a little bit. However, he has Akeem Messidor, and we both picked an edge. So when I offer the opportunity to bet against my board this year, you will have multiple options. You can either pick the position or the player. Those are going to be two different boards that you can pay to get into. It'll be a raffle type system where everyone pays into the same bucket, and then whoever has the best board scores the most points, they win the bucket. If you tie with somebody, you share the bucket. And it's a 100% payout. I'm not keeping anything. It's either I win or I don't. And it's up to you what you want to do with your winnings. Like, if you want to redonate it, that's fine. If you don't, I understand. Number 16, that's where I had Mekhi Lemon going to the Jets. We are in lockstep again because he has Omar Cooper Jr., and I've said this before that, Omar's been kind of second round, inching his way up into the first round. He's way too dynamic of a receiver, and I felt that he could potentially go into the first round as well. But I went with a different flavor where I went with Mekhi Lemon. So we got the receiver right, but we didn't get the same exact player right. So far, we have 3 positions the same and 3 picks the same through the first 16 picks. Number 18. Let me fix this real quick. Hold on. There we go. I'm sorry, number 17, Detroit Lions. I have Caden Proctor. This has always been my guy from day one. Doesn't mean it's going to be that way when we get to the final week of the draft. But right now, Caden Proctor has been my guy to the Lions. You all know that. I wrote about him 2 months ago, and I'm sticking with it. He has Monroe Freeling. So we did not get the player correct together, but we at least got the position right. Now, he's been high on Freeling this whole time. I'm not as high on Freeling. Yes, he does have the most upside. I believe that to a degree, but I think the Caden Proctor's upside is tremendous. That guy's going to stay under 350 pounds. There's nobody that moves like him. There's nobody with that kind of mass. And I'll tell you this, where he ends up going, if Caden Proctor ends up going to the team that Daniel Jeremiah thinks, well, you can just forget about ever stopping a tush push. I'll just leave it at that. Number 18, he has Minnesota taking Dylan Thieneman. I think that's a phenomenal pick because I chose the same thing. They definitely covet good safeties, and they just lost, what's his name? Who's been playing for like 20 years. Why can't I think of his name? Either way, they lost a really good safety, and it is what it is. The next player, number 19, I had Emmanuel McNeil-Warren going to Carolina. He has KC Concepcion. Again, another dynamic receiver. I could see this getting some more firepower to Bryce Young with the ability to separate. I could see that. They already have Tedoroya McMillan and Jalen Coker, so I would think to a lesser degree that this would be more possible. I think that they're going to try to go with something to either help Bryce Young from a protection standpoint, or they're going to end up going with defense, and I think that Emmanuel McNeil-Warren fits that to a T. Next up, C.J. Allen. I had him going at number 20 to the Cowboys. Now, in my next rendition, I'll tell you right now, C.J. Allen won't even be anywhere near the first round. He has T.J. Parker. Now, I do think that Cassius Howell would make a great fit here with the Cowboys, their style of defense, the Micah Parsons-esque, the type of speed, the tenacity, the violence that Cassius Howell plays with. Well, it reminds me of Micah Parsons, but the arm length, the functional length, the ape index tells me he's going to struggle. So that's a perfect player to go to the Cowboys because I think that they like all the flash and dance, and to a lesser extent, functionality has just never been a part of their ability to select players. Number 21, he has Blake Miller, the offensive lineman. Well, I did something a little different here. They need a quarterback, and I do believe that Ty Simpson has an opportunity to go in the first round. And that's where I'm putting him. I'm putting him to the Steelers. A little bit more on C.J. Allen here. His pro day the other day, he was extremely stiff. I mean, he looked like a piece of cardboard out there in the wind. You know, if you ever held a piece of cardboard out in the wind and it just, kind of does this, one of these numbers to you, you're just kind of holding it. That's what he looked like out there running around. Stiff. I'm sorry, but stiff hips, linebacker, don't work. So I have C.J. Allen, as an inside linebacker now, and not in the first round, at least for right now. 22, I have Peter Woods. And at 22, he has Olavi Vegaloni. Well, Vegaloni was already off my board a long time ago. He says the Chargers thank their lucky stars that their need on the interior matches up with the best player still available. 23, that's where Caden Proctor goes, according to Daniel Jeremiah. And like I said, forget about a tush push. You're never going to be able to stop one again if Caden Proctor's in Philly. That's huge. He's huge. At 23, oh, look at that. I agree. It should be a tackle, but not Proctor. So we got the position right. We didn't get the player right. Number 24, I have Max Ihanachor, who is one of the most dynamic, flexible offensive linemen in this draft. And he has Caleb Lomu. So again, we got the position right together. We did not get the player correct together. Caleb Lomu, Cleveland's gamble back at pick 6 pays off. As a left tackle prospect with first-round talent is still available here. I'm not projecting any trades in this mock. I didn't either. But if the Browns do indeed take a receiver with their first choice, it would shock me if they look to move up from 24 for an offensive tackle. All right, the Bears, I would be furious if they got Emmanuel McNeil-Warren. But that is a great fit in Chicago. It really is, and I hate to say that, but you better put McNeil-Warren on your board for Chicago. If he's there, I think he's gone. I selected a punter. No, I'm just kidding. Caleb Downs. So, again, we got the position right, not the player. Now, I have Caleb Downs slipping pretty far in this draft when you look at everybody else's boards and what people are talking about with Caleb Downs. A lot of them have him going top 10. I feel like his medicals are a problem, and until I hear otherwise, I don't have him going top 10. And I don't have him as the overall best safety in the draft. But I'll say this, McNeil-Warren, Dylan Thieneman, and Caleb Downs are all different positions. Every single one of them is different. Free safety, strong safety, box safety, or nickel safety. Dylan Thieneman is your free safety. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is your strong safety. And Caleb Downs is going to be your nickel, your box safety. So that's how I see it rolling. I could be wrong there too. Number 26 to the Bills, Emmanuel Pregnon is who I chose. Well, he chose Cassius Howell. Let's see what he said about Cassius Howell. The level of concern about Howell's lack of length, 30.25-inch arms, will vary from team to team. But his first step quickness is unquestioned after he posted the fastest 10-yard split of any player from the defensive line group at this year's scouting combine. New Bills defensive coordinator Jim Leonard comes from Denver, where the Broncos won off the edge with Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper, who both ranked among the top 5 at their position last season in average get-off per next-gen stats. The difference between a player like Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper, I think that there's a much bigger difference. Now, those are not typical household names for you, right? But Nick Bonito and Jonathan Cooper, both of those guys have 32.5-inch arms, 32 and an 8, 32 and a half, somewhere in that range. That's a big difference when you're talking a 2-inch difference and functional length with your APE index score, which is way down for Howell. I think that makes a huge difference. You can't replace everything else that he does with just length. Kenyon Sadiq going to the San Francisco 49ers. I would hate that pick. I couldn't stand it. Who did I give him? I gave him Caleb Lomu. Again, we didn't line up here, but I do believe that the 49ers need some offensive line help. Number 28, this is an interesting one. I can't believe that he's gone this far up the board. Houston Texans, Chase Bisontis. He says, there are a lot of similarly graded interior offensive linemen that I have in the second round. I have a feeling one of them is going to climb into round 1. In this case, Houston stays in state to add Bisontis. I went Caden McDonald, defensive line. Number 29, Avion Terrell, corner. And the Kansas City Chiefs, according to Daniel Jeremiah, he went with Colton Hood. Now, I mentioned this before, that Colton Hood is one of my favorite corners in this draft. I love the Jermod McCoy tape from 2024. But Colton Hood, he had a pretty damn good year last year, and he had a really good combine. I think Avion Terrell is a little bit better, but both of those players could end up in the first round. So we didn't align on the same player. but we got the position right. And even back, I think all the way back at 25, I think I already mentioned that we got the position right, just not the player. Number 30, Miami Dolphins taking Keldrick Falk here. You know, I already gave them the receiver, so this would make some sense to add some defensive line help. But I went with Omar Cooper Jr. Like I said, I think he's going to end up in the first round. And where's my other pick for them? I gave them Carnell Tate at number 11. And I doubled down. I doubled down on receivers. I don't think that that's crazy, but I think that if you're Miami and you want to build one side of your offense or one side of your team and you don't pass on the receivers, man, if they had Omar Cooper Jr. and Carnell Tate both, all they need is a quarterback that can throw the damn football, and they're right back in it. Probably within the next 2 seasons, they're going to be right back in it while both those guys develop. That would be a wild one, but I've seen wilder things happen. Lee Hunter goes 31 to the Patriots, according to me, and according to Daniel Jeremiah, he went with Caden McDonald. So we got the position right together. We just didn't get the player. Last but not least, Jadarian Price goes 32 to Seattle, and that is actually an extremely good pick. Extremely good pick. I went with Cassius Howell. I went with Cassius Howell because I think that he is a Seahawks type of player. Fast, violent, just has the short arms, but they will figure out a way to implement him off the edge. You know, if corners and safeties can win off the edge, there's no reason why you can't convert Howell a little bit. And I do believe that they need a linebacker. And if you convert Howell to an outside linebacker, again, I don't know what his coverage is going to be like just yet. But if there's anything there, he's a giant safety, and he's a small linebacker at the same time. He's a really small edge, in my opinion. And I think that if you put him somewhere around the box, somewhere up close to the line of scrimmage, you can free him up to make some plays. So that's my breakdown of Daniel Jeremiah and Detroit Football Journal's second first-round mock draft of the year. We did that one kind of on a fly the other night. I like the majority of the picks I made, but as I've always said, I always withhold a little bit. I'm not going to give you everything that I believe that's happening, but I will once we get to the draft. That's for sure. I got a lot more mock drafts coming out. We're almost there. See, everyone else does it really early. I like to get all my research done. I've got a lot of stuff that I have to get done to be able to feel comfortable so that I can actually get some of these right. And once that's done, I'll let you know. We'll get there. Be right back here in 15 seconds. We're going to jump into Cam Jordan coming to Detroit, Taylor Decker, Marcus Davenport, and Hendon Hooker. Be right back.
Throwing middle, caught inside the 5. Jahmyr Gibbs to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. 14 yards on the strike. Goff to Gibbs. You can't cover that man one-on-one. You just can't do it.
Nice job.
Jared takes the snap back, looking, throwing middle. Got Amon-Ra inside the 2, to the 1, to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra, St. Brown. Amon-Ra, St. Brown.
Nice job.
Mariota's got it back. Pressure comes. He's hit. Slips out of it. Rolling to his right. Now he's going down. Brian Branch got him. Sack for the Lions. Snap taken by Mariota, wants to throw it, gonna get hit, gonna get sacked,
Yes,
take it
sir.
down. Brian Branch got him second time today.
Nice job.
Hands it to Gibbs, running right, runs through a tackle, gets
Pressured by Hutchinson. He goes down again.
All right, we're back, and it is a Rise and Grind morning show. 9:27 a.m. We got a little bit of time left for the day. I want to get into three players. One that hasn't been talked about in a little bit, but there was an article that popped out that I thought was very well timed, given the latest rumors about Dan and Brad. I thought this was a good article to discuss here quickly about Hendon Hooker, and is there a chance of him ever coming back? I'll just get that out of the way right away. No, I don't think so. Unfortunately, he didn't develop, right? He didn't develop right, and I think that when you evaluate a general manager and a head coach, I think that there's something that has been missed maybe by some Lions fans when they say that, it was a failed, pick or whatever. I will never say that 2023's draft could ever have been a failure. There's no way possible. They got 4 starters, 4 all-pro, Pro Bowl players with their first 4 picks. And anybody you took after that really didn't matter. Now, hindsight, were there a couple of players that could have been better? Yes. Kobe Turner was one. I mean, that is one I told you all from the very beginning that was a player I wanted in Detroit. And it didn't happen. I think he went at pick 92, something like that. And we ended up taking Broderick Martin at, 96 or 98, whatever the number was. So we missed out on that opportunity. But he was also the last big man available. And we've gone in and researched every big man that was taken after Broderick Martin, and not one of them has done anything in the league of note. Besides one guy, I can't remember his name right now, but he was a 7th round draft pick. I think he had 3 sacks. That's it. So if that's winning to you after 3 seasons, then yeah, we're on different playing fields then. But let's see what Hendon Hooker had to say. Was it a miss? No, because the Lions needed a backup quarterback, and they had extra draft picks, and they needed to figure out a way to manufacture that quarterback of the future as a backup. And it just didn't work out. And that's okay. Why? I'll give you the stat again. Less than 15% of all 3rd-round picks will ever play a game or start in the NFL. The majority of them are backups. Some are even high rotational players. But the fact that we lost out on a, 3rd round, who cares? Right? It really don't matter, especially when you beat that draft in an incredible fashion. So I believe this was A to Z. Who is this? Zach Ragan? Anyway, talks about former Tennessee Vols quarterback Hendon Hooker that was selected by the Lions in 2023. Obviously, the idea, like he says, was for him to serve as the backup to Jared Goff. Just never settled, right? He never settled. Now, the Lions signed Teddy Bridgewater out of retirement for the 24 playoffs, signaling that they didn't trust Hooker, and I think that was the right move. Detroit then signed Kyle Allen to serve as competition for Hooker last summer. And Dan Campbell had said this. He said, Hooker knows the deal. Man, this is no different. You're out here to compete. He knows it's time to take the next step, and so it's his move. And I think he's wired right, and it means something to him. And so here we go, man. It's open camp. Now, that's the right mentality to have as a coach, that you want to consistently have your guys competing, and it doesn't matter where you were drafted. So if you're evaluating Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes on their drafting ability, well, one, there's no way you could ever say it's bad. Two, they let the guy go. Now, if he's not working out and you keep the guy, that's where I have a problem. That would be functionally the wrong thing to do for your team. That sends a message that is not good. That's telling your teammates, look, wait, we're not great, but you know what? We're going to be able to stick because Dan and Brad are willing to just give you extra rope. Nope, they're not. If you're not working out, they quickly figured that out within a season and a half. After he recovered from his injury, they gave him a season and a half, and they were done. No more. Sorry. And that's the right approach to have. Now, Hooker attempted just 9 regular season passes during his first 2 seasons with the Lions. And then last season with the Panthers and the Jets after being released by Detroit. But he's still a big fan of Dan Campbell, and that's why I wanted to bring this in, because despite being released, Hendon Hooker said, I love Dan Campbell, man. He's just an amazing coach. He's an amazing football mind, and he coaches with passion. He wants you to play with passion, and that just becomes contagious. You can see it throughout their whole team. Everyone's playing with their hair on fire. This is a guy that was just cut by the Lions. Released after being a 3rd-round pick. And he still has nothing but good things to say about the organization. That is winning culture. That is a winning formula that even the players that you're cutting are still saying good things about you. I wouldn't expect anything different because I think Hendon Hooker is wired that way. And I think that he's, above all else, he may not be an NFL, quarterback. Maybe that injury changed him too much. He just didn't bounce back the right way. He was coming from a very unorthodox offense, was not pro-ready at all, and Hendon did take extra time to develop at every step of the way along his career. He just didn't grasp the pro system. He didn't, and it wasn't taught to him in college. So it was a high risk, high reward kind of a gamble, but it was low risk from a draft capital perspective when you just hit 4 grand slams in a row, and they knew it. And then they were going to take that quarterback that probably would have been gone shortly thereafter anyway. Someone was going to take him. And maybe had he gone to a different team, maybe he would have developed a little bit differently because he would have been able to play a lot more. If he would have been drafted to a team that needed a quarterback to play the next season, well, then maybe his development goes in a different direction. But see, he's never had an opportunity to start and be the starter, and maybe that just didn't work out for him. Maybe he wasn't the same player. He wasn't totally invested. Yeah, if Hendon did work out, that would have been phenomenal. It would have been phenomenal for us to have a backup quarterback ready to rock and roll. He's got a great arm. His decision making was not the greatest. When I watched him in camp, I mean, he was just, I hate to use this term, but he looked lazy, apathetic, just didn't have the same drive that I thought everybody else did. It's almost like he just kind of went through the motions, and now this is from, me watching this guy in a microcosm, right, in a vacuum for a few hours. I'm not watching him every day, so you got to kind of take what I just said with a grain of salt. Unless I watch him every day, I really have no idea how he practices each and every day. But what I saw those days was not something I expected. It just wasn't. Yeah, speaking of Drew Aller, I'm glad you just brought that name up. Now, I've taken Drew Aller in some of my mock drafts, and I've taken Peyton. I'll tell you right now, Drew Aller just crushed the Penn State Pro Day. Crushed it. I think he had one bad throw. And then after that, I mean, he was just dropping love letters in, man. I mean, he was airmailing it, and they were just dropping right in the bucket. Some beautiful throws by Drew Aller. I'm surprised that he's not getting more love. But he might be making my list. All right, Cam Jordan. Now, a lot of fans have been pumping the media about Cam Jordan, primarily because why? Why are we pumping Cam Jordan's name in Detroit? Can anybody tell me why? Why is it that certain individuals, one that usually only talks about edge, and two, only talks about names, bigger names, the Bosas, the Jordans, right? The Hendricksons, the Garretts, the Phillips. I don't care what the name is. That's all they talk about. High price, big, flashy names. So why are we talking about Cam Jordan? Because he's a name. That's why. Why else? Well, I think both Dan and AG were with him. What year was that? 2017, 18, somewhere in that range, with the Saints. So anyway, he's been around for a while. Let's break open this article real quick. This one's by Brad Behrman. Oh, looks like I got to fix it. I don't do a whole lot of highlighting anymore of articles, but I figured I'd touch on a couple today. For obvious reasons, I don't, because I write, and if no one else is going to talk about my stuff, I'm not going to talk about yours. But I'll do it a couple of times. Getting real sick of all these ads, so I need to get my ad blocker on. Well, that didn't work out. All right, here we go. Cam Jordan. So Brad Behrman says Cam Jordan's latest comments on free agency deliver a cold reality to the Lions. Now, Cam Jordan seems like a perfect fit for the Lions. I don't know who would think that. I certainly don't. But his most recent words make match less likely. Okay. The Detroit Lions finally added an edge rusher, signing former Carolina Panthers DJ Wonnum to a one-year deal, or $6 million per Adam Schefter. Still, as the Lions presumably look to add depth at the edge in subsequent waves of free agency, Cameron Jordan stands out as a good fit. Why is he a good fit? Can somebody please explain why he would be a good fit? Have we not paid attention at all to what the Lions are doing this year? Now, would Cam Jordan... I got to see. Why is my extension not working? What's going on here? Oh, it's on. Have we not paid attention? Like, what have the Lions done this year? They've cut clunky, bloated contracts, or what would have been bloated contracts had they kept players, and they also cut age. They got younger. And this is by design. This is not by accident. This is by design that the Lions have done this. They wanted to get younger, sharper, faster, less expensive, right? And bring in competition. Cam Jordan doesn't bring in competition at all. You know, but what he says in here, it should also, it will compare to AQM. So let's just roll through it. So that we signed DJ Wonnum for 1 year worth $6 million. But DJ Wonnum is still young enough to where if he does work out and he does have a good season, he could get a 2 or 3 year deal next year. Not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying there's always a possibility, and he's young enough to where it could happen. But still, the Lions presumably look to add depth at the edge. You know, like he says, Cameron Jordan could be a good fit. Dan Campbell was a New Orleans assistant coach for a chunk of Jordan's time there. Okay, so that remains true. In February, the veteran defensive end made it fairly clear that he felt his time with the team that drafted him could be over. And here's what he said. He says, if you get a 10-sack season, if I was 26, I'd be asking for top dollar. Things I've never asked for is top dollar. All I've ever asked for is to be valued. Okay, let's think about that for a moment. Why does he mention 10 sacks? Take a guess. This one's pretty easy. And answer 14 just hit the nail right on the head. The reason why he mentions 10 sacks is because it's not easy to get 10 sacks in the NFL. So for all of the blowhards out there that think that we need all these 10-sack players opposite of Aiden, they just don't exist. It's extremely difficult to get 10 sacks. And the Lions had the only two players on their team last year in the top 12 to have 10 sacks or more. But he mentions if I was 26 years old and I had a 10-sack season, I'd be asking for top dollar. Well, I think you need more than just one. I think that teams often overpay because, a player has a decent 1 year and maybe their consistency before that wasn't as good. And then they overpay, and then that you find out the next year that player's not a 10-sack a year guy. Happens all the time. So my eyes really bother me. He says, to be fair, 10.5 sacks last season are not fully backed by deeper data. It's very possible potential free agent suitors, including the Saints, see that and are coming in with offers that don't reflect where he and his camp see his value. Which that would make sense, because if you look at what AQM just got, 11.5 sacks, and he got a $6 million deal. Now, Spotrac has Jordan, his market value, projected at 6.8, and I'd say that that's spot on. But that still doesn't mean up here. That still doesn't mean that he's a fit for the Lions. So his most recent comments may push him off the Lions free agency board, where he says, Jordan recently appeared on former teammate Taron Armstead's podcast, The Set, where he said he is still open to returning to the Saints for a 16th season, but he has a set value for his services, and the team may have a different view of that value. So he's fine with continuing his career with another team if that comes to that, or if it comes to that. So what he's saying here is, you know what? I don't need any more money. I'm 95 years old playing football from a football analytics standpoint, or, a geriatric standpoint. He's 102. And he might say, yeah, for me to go suit up, to go bang my body again for another year, I want, $9 million. That's bar to entry to have me signed on the dotted line. There's not going to be too many teams out there that are ready to, run to him with a contract. What's going to end up happening is then Cam Jordan is going to sit on the outside looking in. He's going to stay ready. And when a team gets injured, that is when he can throw his weight around. That's what a lot of older vets do, is they'll sit, they'll wait. They'll, after the draft, the team maybe didn't get what they wanted. And then they come knocking on Cam Jordan's door, and he'll probably say, you know what? Back in March, yeah, you know what? $9 million, you could have had me. It is now May. It's changed. I think I'm worth 11.3 now. And you know what? He's going to strong arm some teams from that perspective. Someone's going to end up paying it because they need somebody. Or they all balk at it and he stays unsigned, and then he waits until a contender needs a player. And then he goes in and he sweeps up $1 million a game to ride off into the sunset. So he's not a fit for that reason. But he also said this. He said, you see guys my age re-sign with a team because that's the only team that they've ever been with. And you're like, hell yeah, we love that. But that's to his situation. That may not be my situation. As football players, we can only control what we can control. As much as I'd like to be, or as much as I be like, hell yeah, I want them to love me as much as I love them. Sometimes the business side of it, or the business side of that, makes you feel emotional. You got to be able to take your emotions out of it. That's funny. I say that all the time, don't I? Of course, I'd love to be in New Orleans. At the same time, if the cents don't make sense, we got to find our own path. I know what I want to do, what I want to accomplish. If that doesn't line up, that's fine as well. Here's how I take that. I take that as this. He wants to go win a ring. He would love to stay in New Orleans. They ain't nowhere sniffing a ring. You know what I mean? They're nowhere close. So that means he's going to have to go somewhere else. The problem is they probably don't see his value the same way that he does. Go figure. I think that happens with everybody. And he's okay with not even playing. That's what I took that last sentence as. If that doesn't line up, then that's fine as well. So this is not about, yeah, hey, you know what? Give me a couple mil, I'll come play. No, he wants to go win, but he's not going to go out there and bang his body around for peanuts. He'd rather sit at home. He's got plenty of money. And if team needs him in November, well, then give him a call. But he still wants that mil per game or $500,000 per game. And teams later in November are willing to pay that because they're not paying 9 or 10 or, 16 mil or whatever the number is. Call it 9. They're not paying 9 mil for a full season now. Well, now they might only pay, 4 or 5 mil or 3, 4 mil, whatever the number is for the rest of the season. So essentially you're saving 5, 6, million bucks. Again, whatever the number is. But if you go and sign him now, a 30, what is he, 38, 37? He's up there. 36, he'll be 37 July 10th. He's only 9 years younger than me. And he's out there playing football. I couldn't have played football 9 years ago. Ain't no way. So he's old. He's used and abused. He's geriatric times 2. I mean, at football age, like they say dog years. Well, in football age, he's 102. That's not what the Lions are trying to do. The Lions are trying to get young, faster, healthier, with impact players, and manage their cap space. Bringing in a 37-year-old at 8, 9, 10 million bucks for a season is the exact opposite. So this is less about that the Lions don't want to get better. It's not that the Lions don't want to bring in dynamic football players. But the reality is, remove the damn emotion and start doing the real work of figuring out why it doesn't make sense. It's less about dynamic football player, like I said, or potential for sacks. It's more about everything else. How does that player fit? Do we really want a 37-year-old? Can we afford to pay that player and then, not take that money and just re-sign one of our own, which we desperately need to do anyway? The problem is people just pump crap because they pump crap, and then it gets the fan base all riled up. And again, I said it in the, the volume that I never released, but I did the article with you guys a week or two ago. The In Brad We Trust, which was supposed to be volume 1, which will be volume 3 now, is pretty damning information, right? The people that pump all this stuff out there, They get the fan base all riled up and happy. Oh, yeah, that'd be a perfect move, but Brad didn't do it. Shame on Brad. Now we all hate Brad. What did that just do to your team? How did that help your team win? It didn't. If anything, it's taking your team and making them take steps backwards of trying to filter out all this toxic waste media. It doesn't help your team. You know what? Have a constructive, creative argument. Make your argument. Talk about the player. But if we end with sentences that say, if Brad Holmes brings in Marcus Davenport, he better be, fired on the next bus out or whatever. Like, come on. Get real. I hope and pray that Marcus Davenport plays on this team this year. I hope he does. So let's talk about Marcus next. Intel says this. Let me look at your comments real quick. Yeah, answer 14 says, older players often go from productive last season to falling off a cliff with little to no warning. Spot on, man. Edge is not the answer says, why is there a big push for Zeitler all of a sudden? I don't know. I haven't seen that. But isn't he also 37 years old? He had a good year with us, right? In 2024, he had a good year. But I don't know where this push for Zeitler's coming from. I mean, the Lions offensive line is fine. Like, it's totally upgraded from where it was last year. If we are one player away right now, it's not to win a Super Bowl, but we are one player away on that offensive line from repeating that 23-24 offensive line. We need one dynamic left tackle, and we should be good to go. We got plenty of guards and plenty of right tackles. We don't have a left tackle. We have 4 centers. We need one of them to be able to play to a high level. And outside of that, yeah, we definitely don't need a Kevin Zeitler. Not for the kind of money he wants. Let's see, kind of how we overpaid Aleem a little too quick. Yeah, no, I don't think that we overpaid Aleem at all. You got to remember that Aleem McNeil was a top 12 defensive tackle. When he was signed, they ended up saving about, at least $4 million AAV. So about 12 to 16 million they saved on signing Aleem back then compared to what it would cost today, because you just saw the defensive tackle that was just signed this year. See if I can pull it up. Running close on time, too. All right. Free agents that were all signed this year. If I just trim it down to defensive tackle here. John Franklin Myers was just given 3 for $63. Is this all teams? Yeah. I don't think I'm signed in. Looks like it was just updated too. One sec. Okay, so yeah, John Franklin Myers was just given 3 for $63, so that's $21 million a year AAV on a 3-year deal. He's 29 and a half years old. 29 and a half years old. And he was just given $21 million bucks. Lee McNeil signed a deal that was 4 years, $97 million. His AAV was 24 and a quarter. And he signed that at age, what, 24? 24-ish? So he signed for under 25 at 24 years old. And John Franklin Myers at 29 and a half just signed for $21 million. Could you imagine if we had signed Lee McNeil this year or at the tail end of last year? I don't know that we would have been able to sign him this year. We'd have had to have probably got it done last year. And if you look at, some of the other defensive linemen that were paid big money, who was the one that was done last year? That was for the Eagles. Was it Milton Williams? Milton Williams signed a 4-year, $104 million deal last year. That's $26 million a year. So that's $1.75 million more per season, per season over a Lee McNeil. So that saved him at least $7 million signing him back then. But they also saved on guarantee. His total guarantee at sign was $28 million. The total guarantee was $55 million. So they saved a ton of money by doing it back then. A ton of money. And think about it. That 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 million, whatever it is that you're saving, even 1.75 million a year, that's two players. That's two bottom feeders on the bottom of your depth chart. That's two UDFAs, or it's two, 6th, 7th round rookies. So that money is absolutely needed. It may sound like small potatoes, but really it's not. That money is needed. So anyway, Marcus Davenport, latest intel that I have is that while there has been, from what I've heard, zero movement on Marcus Davenport. He has not announced his retirement. He was going to mull over retirement prior to last year. And it was likely that he was going to depart the Lions this year, but there's been no team from what I understand, that has been interested in re-signing him other than the Lions. That this could be a wait-and-see approach after the draft, potentially into the summer, until Davenport makes his decision. So latest intel says no other team has really been interested. He has also not made a decision on whether he's even going to play. But if he does want to play, I would not be surprised if he doesn't come back. I would not be surprised. He hasn't signed with anyone. If he's going to play, I think it's going to be in Detroit this year. It'll be on another low year deal, but it would also be just a depth guy that has to make it through training camp if it does happen. And I wouldn't be mad. He'll be a couple years removed from all of his injuries. Last year was just a freak injury. At some point, you've got to have a healthy year, but he would not be the starter. He absolutely would not be the starter. And if you had Davenport on a rotation, there's nothing wrong with that, especially against the run. So not really a ton of news, but enough news, right, that where there's still a possibility there. And then there's Taylor Decker. Now, this one's a little bit more intriguing. So, obviously, Taylor Decker got his release, right? And I was mulling this over. I think we talked about it a couple of times on here, that it just felt like this was all a facade. That Taylor Decker asked for his release, was granted his release, but I think the Lions were going to release him anyway. And that's what the intel has come through with, that the Lions were going to either release him, or if he didn't retire, that he was going to get released. And so when they had conversations with Taylor Decker, again, I don't know everything that is said. I'm not going to say that I know everything that was said because, like I say about everything else, there's no way to know. But the intel says, and it hasn't been wrong yet this year, it's been spot on, that the conversation was taking the haircut, stay in Detroit, help us win, but you don't have a starting job. And you're going to have to work for it and earn it just like everybody else. Apparently that didn't go well, but then it made me start to believe that it was just all a facade, like I said, and that Taylor Decker would be back and that he's just going to be, you know, not a holdout per se, but he's not getting active with any other teams. From what I understand, no other teams have really offered anything. And when you look at what happened recently with some contracts to Rasheed Walker, like less than or $10 million for one season. If Taylor didn't agree to that, well, that's kind of the number now. There's no way that Taylor Decker is going to make more than $10 million a season. So the number that was sacrificed, which I believe was it 9 or 11 mil on Decker? I think it was, let's just call it 10. I think he lost 10 by getting released. That's probably what they'll try to give him back. And it might be on a 2-year deal, but it's a 1-year deal. It just has some void years built in to help manage the cap. I am not out on Decker coming back. And from the intel, it sounds like that is likely to happen. The Decker's either going to retire or he'll come back. Like he's not necessarily looking to go somewhere else. And I thought that was interesting. So there's also an article here that was written, I think yesterday. Lions Wire by Jimmy Liao. And he was talking about, was it yesterday? Yeah, it was yesterday at 5:52 a.m. Where he was talking about Decker's, when Decker announced his return less than 2 months ago after the season's end, that it was assumed to be an excellent sign for his recovery. It also suggested that a short amount of rest had made a big difference in his symptoms. However, now that we know that the Lions asked Decker to adjust his contract for 26, I didn't hear that. I thought that was all rumor. I didn't hear that till last night. The analysis needs to be updated. So the presumed quick improvement in Decker's shoulder may not have been the reality. Being healthy for the season may have been more of the exploitation on Decker's part. With still 6 months until the start of the season, Decker may have indeed been ready to play a full season, but it was far from a certainty from the Lions' standpoint. That I did know, and that was confirmed again yesterday. But we knew that at the combine, right? When I forget who asked him about Decker, but Dan said that there was going to be a lot that Decker was going to have to do to maintain his ability on the field this year, or availability. I think some of the words that he used were, there's a lot there, and I wonder if we have the quote. I think it might be on my shorts. Oh, maybe not. I thought I had it. I was going to play it real quick. Anyway, he goes on to say that given the uncertainty, the Lions probably wanted the contract to reflect the reality, which the reality is Taylor Decker was not going to be in practice all the time. He was going to be consistently in rehab, right? Consistently getting better. In between games, he was going to require a lot of rest and a lot of programs to even be able to suit up. And if that's the case, yeah, you're not going to make $20 million. There's just no way. It also is understandable that Decker was miffed by the Lions' request, given that he valiantly battled through an entire year with his shoulder, missing only 2 games for it, plus another missed game for illness. Yeah, I think less to that extent. Like, these players know that there's a business side to this, and they know that they're under contract, so it's not that they have to go out and produce and battle through things just because, but they're under contract. So if you're hurt, you're hurt. If you're injured, you're injured. And if the medical report says you can't play, you can't play. You know, it is what it is. So I don't think that's really part of it. I think that, again, based on the intel, it sounds like there's more of an opportunity that this may not be done. And I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to speculate any further, but this may not be done and that he could be back. So I think the draft is going to tell us a lot. All right, we're going to wrap up with this. Yeah, there you go, Art. That's, the management. That's the other word he used. Man, I really want this sickness, crud crap to just go away. It's just, man, it just will not go away. Yeah, so I see some conversation in here about Davenport. Yeah, I think we all understand Davenport to a degree. You know, I don't buy into the negative narrative pumping. You guys know that, but Davenport has so much upside when he's on the field and he's healthy. And I get it. When he's off the field, he doesn't help the team. He always has been one of the truest, purest, edge-setting defensive ends that just had a string of bad luck. It happens, man. Like, some people just have all the talent in the world, and they never rise to the top because of whatever reason. Either they don't take ownership or responsibility, they lie, they slander, they defame, and you know, it's like I had a podcast once with a guy, and now somebody else has a podcast with that guy. Everyone gets my sloppy seconds, you know. That happened with two guys. I had a podcast with two guys, and two people get my sloppy seconds. So how's my mic taste? I'll how's my mic taste? You know what I mean by that. So as far as, you know, Davenport, man, it's like, if he stays healthy and if he's on a low rotation in the run game, that adds significant upside. Significant upside. But at the same time, the injuries are a problem. So you could really never significantly invest in a guy like that and say that he's a starter, which is totally okay. You could also put him on a vet squad and use him in you know, situations where he's needed, because to have somebody with that experience, style of play, that size, the work ethic, and you could put him on your vet squad, on the practice squad, that's a perfect spot for him to be. I'm not saying 53, but vet squad, sure. Same thing for Decker, man. I think that it would be really tough, even though that this thing may not be done with Deck. I think it would be a lot tougher to get better as a team if Decker came back. And what I mean by that is there's only so many spots. Like, you have to take 8 offensive linemen into the game to be able to get that extra player. So if you don't bring 8, you lose that extra player. I don't know if that rule's changing. So you need 8 guys. And when you look at the room already, it's, where'd my pen go? We'll go from right to left. You got Panay. You got Tater Tot. You got Mays. You got Mahogs. And we got an I don't know. And then behind Panay, you have, here, they'll just throw Borum on the left for now. Behind Mays, you got McLaughlin. Behind Mahogany, you got Frazier. Behind Tate, behind Panay, and behind Borum. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 7. And that's, you got one more that you're going to be rolling with. on game day just to be able to get that extra player. And so you got Giovanni Manu. You probably throw him behind Panay on the right side. Or you could put him behind Borum. And then you got Juice Scruggs. You could put him behind Tate, assuming he makes it. I don't believe in Colby Sorsdahl. I don't believe in Devin Cochran. But I do believe in Mason Miller and Seth McLaughlin. So I think Mason Miller would be your other guy. So there's 10 guys already. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 guys. You've got starters and backups. So you really need one more guy. And you probably need to bring in 4 or 5 more because of camp, right? When you go into training camp, I'd have to go back and look at the 90-man roster. I don't have my spreadsheet up. But I have them all saved for the last 5 years. It's the stuff that I'm going to start putting on the website, too, so that you guys can have access to it when you want to go back and look at something. I'm going to create, when I get time, I'm going to create an area just called archives. But if you go back and look at, the 90-man roster for 2025, how many offensive linemen did we have, right? We had 11 undrafted free agents last year on that 90-man. Keith Cooper is one. Like, whatever happened to Keith Cooper, man? He was so fun to watch last year. Let's see. I guess I am going to have to pull up my archives because I can't find it online right now. This is ridiculous. I'll just go to 2024. It's the first one that popped up for me. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, it's not complete. Shit. Whatever. I'll have to come back to it another day. I don't have any time left. I would say that you probably need 15 offensive linemen. We're close to that for camp. You're going to run 2 full sides anyway, offense and defense. So there's at least 10. And then you need guys to filter in and filter out for breaks, injuries, whatever. So if you bring 15, that makes sense. We're already good in the center department. I think that we have plenty of centers to go at it. I think we have 4 that legit can play center on this team. Well, 3 with Tate Ratledge learning. And we have like 4 right tackles. We need some left tackles. We'll need some more guards. And then that'll get you into your 90-man into the summer. And then coming out of that, if the Lions keep 9 or 10 on the 53, that's probably about it. Man, where's all my 53-man rosters? Looks like I got to add that to the worksheet again. I don't know what I did with them all. All right. So last year on the depth chart, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. No, this looks like this year's. You guys are such liars. All right, here we go. All right, so on the 53 last year, the Lions had my goodness. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. They had 9 on the active 53. I think we had 2 or 3 spots open on the 53, but we only kept 9 going into the 53. Dan Skipper, Tristan Colon, Netnani Moody, Gunnar Britton, Mason Miller, Michael Neese, and Zach Johnson all missed the cut, and Kobe Sorsdahl and Justin Herron were on injured reserve, and Miles Frazier was on the physically unable to perform list. So really we had 12, but 9 made the 53, and Frazier would have made the 53, which probably would have dropped out Keowati Wasika, I would assume. So if we're looking at 9 to make the roster, we already have that. But we need to severely get better at left tackle. So, all right, with that, I think I covered everything. Oh, DJ Wonham, no big deal there. Don't even really need to go into it, honestly. I was just going to do a comparative analysis, but I'll save that for next week. So that's it. Send me emails. Mailbag at rockdown.com. Let's get the weekly mailbag pumping again. I want to start doing a night show every week with the mailbag, but I need your questions. I need you to show up, and then I need you to call in. If you can do that, we'll continue to do it. We tried to do it last year. It was working, but then it wasn't working, and then it was working. We need people to call in and do it. We got some donations going on in here. What's going on? Hold on here. I just missed a couple. Robbie just sent 5 memberships. And J-Rod just sent 10 memberships. So he's got 15 new members. Who got it? Brent Lighton got one. Mike Marsek, 5 Toes TV. Sandy 13 Wings. Patrick Michaels. Tom Mack. Hope Springs Eternal. El Jefe de Jeffes. Whatever that is. It's kind of a cool name. It's Massive Purpose. And Jag Knowles. Jag Knowles. That must be a Jaguar Knowles fan, huh? Maybe I got that one right. Looks like Rather Be Fishing got one. Maybe. But anyway, appreciate you guys. Appreciate you guys sending those out and bringing us in some new members. We'll see you guys on Monday. I'll be back this weekend, I'm sure. But it'll be limited outside of videos. We got a lot of videos that are going to be hitting this weekend. A lot of draft stuff. All right, we'll see you guys. Take care. Go and probably go to Detroit Lions. Adios.
Pressured by